I don't know whether the current president of the United States was with prostitutes. It's possible, but I don't know.
Was President Trump obstructing justice?
Possibly.
Do you think the Russians have something on Donald Trump?
I think it's possible. I don't know. These are more words I never thought I'd utter about a president of the United States, but it's possible.
Former FBI Director James Comey repeatedly speculating without providing any evidence whatsoever during his ABC interview. Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz says that was blatantly irresponsible.
You don't traffic in speculation, particularly when you're the former head of the FBI, who was presumed to know everything. And when he says on national television, it's possible, people say, yeah, that's probably
the case. We haven't found anything?
He should have said there is no evidence. We found no evidence the Russians have anything on him. We found no evidence to support the Steele dossier. We have no evidence.
Yeah.
That's what he should say. He's in the evidence business, not in the speculation business.
Let's bring in Trump 2020 campaign senior advisor Katrina Pierson. What'd you make of all the speculating?
Well, we're supposed to be dealing with a bureau chief of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, but it looks like, Liz, he's the former Federal Bureau of Speculation. These are very serious charges that he sort of just left out there. And when you have entities like MSNBC who are on television saying there is zero evidence of wrongdoing, when you have CBS and ABC saying that his book was just really petty, recycling 2016 attacks from presidential opponents. I mean, this is the kind of stuff where you have someone who's writing a book that is supposed to be about integrity and transparency and honor and truth, when in fact he's just acting like a big baby and probably hurt himself.
Okay. Katrina, listen to James Comey recall his first meeting with President Trump.
It was the first time you met Donald Trump. What was your impression?
He had impressively coiffed hair that looks to be all his. I confess I stared at it pretty closely, and my reaction was, must take a heck of a lot of time in the morning. His tie was too long, as it always is. He looked slightly orange up close with small white half moons under his eyes, which I assume are from tanning goggles.
Okay, this is supposedly from the most ethical man in D.C. professing to be mortally offended by Trump and how he looks.
Well, I mean, this just goes to show you Comey's towing the liberal line. I mean, these are the things that they like to hear each other say. It's quite obvious. And Congress should relook at his testimony. I mean, he admitted on national television to leaking information. Alan Dershowitz is right. It was very cowardly for Comey to do what he did. He sat there, didn't challenge the president when he interpreted something to be maybe not forthright. He did the exact same thing to Loretta Lynch, who has come out and said publicly that he never even raised concerns with her. I think he's a very disturbed individual trying to somehow recapture the identity whom he thought he was and miss the mark.
The question is, was it Comey's job to rush to go public and hold press conferences? Was it his job to factor in his personal interpretation of politics and the political landscape, saying, well, Hillary was going to win, so it's okay to reopen the case right before the election? I mean, now we've got former governor and former U.S. Attorney General for New Jersey, Chris Christie. He's claiming he was shocked by the Comey interview. Let's listen.
When I worked for Jim, if I had said to him 11 days before an election that I was going to release information that could potentially affect the election, and one of the things that influenced me was polling, he would have fired me. He would have fired me on the spot. And it is really disconcerting to me as a guy who worked with him and for him and have defended him on this air and other places over the years to see this interview and what he was saying. It is exactly what they teach you not to do. And I think it's unfortunate. He began to believe his own press clippings, and it's the biggest danger in public life. And the hubris that he shows in that interview is extraordinary to me, and not the guy that I worked with or worked for, and it's sad.
Katrina, we've talked to many people at the FBI. They say they can't even think of an FBI director who would have written a book like this or acted like this. What's your reaction?
No, not at all. Chris Christie is right. I think anyone that thinks of anything when it comes to the FBI is that this was definitely a shock when he admitted on television that polling influenced his decision. And you have the left accusing the president of politicizing the agency when the former director was using polling to make decisions about investigations. If that doesn't tell you what you need to know, then I don't know what will.
Yeah,
we really need to get back to the basics on this.
This is a federal police force. These are federal cops. That's what he's running. And to your point, Katrina, we have 538 editor Nate Silver. He's known as a really good forecaster. He said this, quote, if Comey's decision to reopen the Hillary Clinton email probe right before the election was influenced by, as Comey says, his interpretation of the polls that Hillary would win, that really ought to cut against Comey's image as an honorable, principled decision maker. Instead, he was just being expedient, trying to save his own hide. Your reaction?
Absolutely. That is exactly what's happening here. There was no transparency, no honesty, truth, and integrity in anything that James Comey did, either leading up to the election or even after the election. He didn't tell the president that this dossier that he was just discussing over dinner was funded by the Clinton campaign and didn't have any merit. There's a lot of things that need to be relooked at with James Comey because it's time that these people are held accountable for their actions. People's lives are being turned upside down, and no one seems to care.